This is a video on Iowa unemployment compensation. This is legal information, not legal advice. Today I'm going to talk about embezzlement and employee theft, and some of it in relation to Iowa unemployment, but more so just general topics of how to prevent theft and how to detect it. Employee theft is a problem for almost all businesses. Most small businesses will have some elements of employee theft at any point in time in their operation. Now, theft comes in many forms. The number one is time theft. People coming in late, not reporting it, coming back late from lunch, and so on. And these types of problems are commonplace. Employers need to correct them. When they catch it, they should issue written reprimands stating if it happens again, you'll get fired. And there should be systems in place so that you can check when somebody comes and goes and keep track of your employees. It's a system that employees should know is in place so that they know there's accountability and it will keep them honest. Inventory is another problem. Missing inventory can cost employers thousands of dollars. I've seen cases in the hundreds of thousands of dollars where inventory comes up missing. Employees were taking and selling it on Craigslist or on eBay, and if you have specialty items that come up missing and there's something that isn't very commonplace, you should check on sale places such as eBay and Craigslist to see if those items are being sold, and then try to make contact with whoever's selling them to find out if it's one of your employees. And then they can account for where it comes from. But keeping good inventory keeps employees honest. Reputation is another theft. And what it is an employee trying to sabotage your business. If you have a front desk clerk that treats patients or customers like dirt and they don't want to come back, or they do everything they can to confound the schedule, say, sorry, we can't get you in for 6 months, when in fact they could fit you in over lunch for an emergency. These kinds of thefts of reputation will destroy a business. And professionals need to be very aware of what's going on at the front desk. Cash handling is a major problem, and usually there's many good solutions on how to watch the cash to make sure it doesn't start disappearing. And employees, there's probably better tutorials than what I'm going to give you, and I don't have enough time to give you all the information I have about how to prevent cash thefts. Solutions usually involve cameras, and every employer in America has at least one employer or more in a set workplace should have a camera on their parking lot and a camera on their doors where they come in. Not necessarily inside the building unless you have a warehouse where inventory is coming and going, and then you probably should have cameras on all the corners. Computers are another source of information. If you have employees that use company computers and a company email system, expect employees to use it for personal use. I mean, that is very commonplace. Occasional intermittent personal use usually saves employers time, because it's better than having them use their cell phone and making a long phone call when they can spend 30 seconds shooting out an instant message reminding someone to pick up milk when they come home from work. So computers are a good source. It's probably not the best policy to say employees don't use the internet or email system for any personal use whatsoever, but limited emergency, occasional use is probably okay. The first thing you should do if you suspect an employee is embezzling or stealing from you in some way, why don't you take a look at their computer records, their email records, their internet access. Telephone records are next. You should take a look at telephone records to see if there's long distance calls, to whom they are made, and how the duration, occasional 30-second call for a personal reason, probably not something to be concerned of, but it's those 30-minute calls, those long calls to friends and family that really cause trouble. And you can learn a lot from reviewing a telephone record if your employee has a specific phone number that they use. And also the employees' cell phones are the same way. Keep track of those records and see how much personal use there is. If it gets excessive, you should give immediate warnings. They should be in writing. They should state if it happens again, you'll face progressive discipline up to and including discharge. One of the best devices for timekeeping are door keypads, where each employee has to keypad in to get in the building. Make them come through the same door, have each one a separate keypad number, and make it a violation of policy to share their keypad number with someone else. That way you know exactly when the employees come in the building and who's coming in. So that if you have a large inventory, a large warehouse, you know when and where people are going and what they're doing, and then have a camera on top of that door to watch what people are doing when they come and go, what time they come, to correlate with that behavior. So if you have people coming in on weekends when nobody's working and you see boxes of merchandise being loaded into their car, you know what's going on with your inventory. But the keypad doors are an excellent idea. Personal use. There's many employers, especially small businesses, will allow personal use of their company property and equipment for employees. And as oddly enough, the best and most productive employees are the ones that take advantage of the personal use of employers' premises and tools and facilities. One thing you must remember: always make some type of documentation when you let employees use the equipment or use merchandise that they pay for it. And keep a record of it. Employees, this is very important for an employee to understand that if you're going to use the employer's property, you are responsible for it. And make sure that you use it in a way that you can't be accused of theft. So, for example, if the employer lets you take a welder home, and you should shoot the manager an email before you go home, say, I'm going to take a Lincoln 225 arc welder home with me today. I'll take it at 5 o'clock. It will return at 7 a.m. on Monday morning when I report to work. I'm going to take 25 rods with me for welding. And when I come back, I will return the ones I don't use. And by the end of the day, pay accounting for the rods that I use. And put that in an email and save those emails in some kind of an email folder that you have, so that you have those in the future. Whatever you do, do not rely on a casual conversation with a supervisor or a lead coworker saying, I'm going to borrow this equipment and use this inventory. Never rely on a verbal conversation, because if push comes to shove, that employee is going to tell you, oh, you didn't say that, I don't remember that, it didn't happen. Employees, you must protect yourself. Employers, you should put a system in place where everything is documented when you let employees use your equipment. It's all right. It creates good employee morale, and you will keep the best employees around. The ones who will use your equipment the most will probably be your most productive employees. But by all means, document and record everything that happens. And it's as important that the employee does it as the employer. The employee has the burden when something comes up missing or is broken, and something isn't where it's supposed to be. So personal use of property, that's fine. Now let's talk about some warning signs of embezzlement. One of the big warning signs is simply a change in attitude. You can't live without me. What do you can't fire me. I'm too good. I do this and you can't do it. Well, that kind of an attitude is the first big sign that you got an employee that you need to either get their attitude changed, give them some warnings, change behavior, or get them on their way. And the first thing you should start looking for is to see if something's coming up missing. That attitude change, and it's usually not some employees have that attitude from day one, but I'm talking an employee attitude change. And when that happens, you should start looking. Absenteeism, when you have an employee that isn't missing work and all of a sudden just can't come in on time and doesn't have any explanation, there is an illness in the family or other transportation issues, there's another sign. The first thing that happens in most embezzlement cases, except for the career embezzler, the first thing that happens is they start abusing work times. They come in late, they leave early, they call in absent. Absenteeism is a major warning sign for an employee that is getting ready to steal. Now, the career embezzlers aren't this way. They show up on time and early because they know they're going to get an extra check by stealing you blind. Obviously, attitude changes. As I said, major attitude changes, major medical problems that occur, especially chemical dependency and alcohol issues, often can be warning signs when your inventory starts coming up short. Now, let's talk about doctors. And while we're on medical, let's talk about doctors who have prescription rights. If you have a script pad, doctors, you must keep it under lock and key. That is 100% your responsibility. Never under any circumstances allow one of your employees to have access to your script pad. Only you should be writing those scripts. Now, most scripts now are sent electronically. And every day, at the end of the day, there should be a way that you can review every script that was sent in. And you don't need to look at every script that there is, but you should have a daily audit. And what you should be auditing are just simply the drugs that are the most often abused, the benzodiazepines and the oxy drugs, and just scan through those 50 to 100 scripts and see see if you can, when you find those, and if you recognize the patient name. If you don't recognize the patient name, or it is a patient that is a child or husband or daughter of an employee, then you got some red flags. So go through every day and just take a quick scan to look for those narcotic type drugs, the benzodiazepines and oxycontins and so on. Let's talk about food service companies and food purchases. Employees need to be very aware of buying food. Most companies that have some kind of a cafeteria or food workers will allow them to get a discount on their food, and they'll allow them to have free food sometimes, or get soft drinks at a significantly reduced rate. Employees, please understand, you must always pay for your food before you consume it. Pay for your food before you pick it up, and keep the damn receipt. Whatever you do, I don't care if all the other employees just eat this employer blind, you pay for it. And you keep a receipt. And you take that receipt and put it in a pocket, and when you get in your car every night to go home, you shove it in an envelope in your glove box or somewhere in your car, and you stuff that thing full of all your food receipts. Because at some point in time, the employer may come in and say, well, so everybody's stealing, I'm just going to fire everybody. And you bring your little envelope full of receipts in and shove it in the employer's face and say, you're not going to fire me. You're going to give me a pay raise. Here's copies of all my receipts for everything I've done. And don't develop bad behavior because of other employees' bad behavior. Always do the right thing. Follow employer's policy. Employers, you should have a written policy on how employees can purchase food for their own consumption. Employees, never check yourself out. If you run a cash register and want to buy something, don't run it through your cash register. Wait till you can get somebody else to check you out. If you do run it through your cash register, send an email or a written note and keep a copy of it, letting the employer know the date and time and what you did and the circumstances so that they're fully aware. This is an employee burden. When being accused of theft, it can be a very dangerous situation. So play by the rules, always pay for what you eat, and keep documentation. Loans. Now, there's a lot of small employers who like to advance money to their employees. And they have this casual, usually are very, very casual about doing it. And it's usually in low-paying wage job, waitresses and bartenders and things like that. And they flip them a $100 bill and then they take it out of their check the next week without anything in writing. Employers, if you're going to give people cash advances, put it in writing. Have a little form that says, I gave John a $100 cash advance on January 1st, and $20 will be taken out of every paycheck each week until it's paid off. Then have the employee sign and date it. Keep everything in writing. Employees, if you're borrowing from your employer, you should insist on having this in writing, because you'll end up in the situation where the employee will say, well, you said I could take $100 out of the till, and the employer will say, I didn't say that. I don't remember that. I don't think that happened. I think you're a thief. So employees, get it in writing. If you're going to borrow money and it's important enough that you do it, make sure that it is in writing. Now let's go to checking accounts. And a lot of professionals and businesses will have someone who will manage their checking account and take care of their books and pay their bills and pay their mortgage and pay their professional fees. Whatever you do, that's fine. Delegate that responsibility to the employee. But don't come back and say, well, I'm a lawyer. My business is practicing law, not paying bills. That's why I hired somebody else. Or I'm an artist. I make beautiful art. I didn't have time for that. I'm a doctor. I practice medicine. I don't have time to do books. Well, you know, folks, if it's your business, you have time. You should reconcile your checkbook and your bank records monthly to make sure checks are not being written and then not put in the checkbook. And what routinely happens in these cases, and it's usually with an office manager of a small business with 10 employees or less, where the office manager gets a bad attitude and starts writing themselves a second check here and there, or paying their cable bill with the company checkbook and then never logging it in. And these, it can add up to a lot of money. You got to check and make sure those things are being taken care of. Let's talk about mail. One good way to prevent problems and to monitor, and this is a very simple and it takes practically no time. Employers, pick up your own mail. Pick it up personally. Look through to see if you have any notices of bank defaults on your mortgage or on other payments, or past due notices that are coming in that are just getting thrown in the trash. IRS notices. If you have an employee that wants to sabotage your business and an IRS notice comes in and they just shove the letter into a shredder and you never know anything about it until you're in so much hot water it costs you thousands of dollars of legal bills to get it done. Pick up your own mail, open those letters that you think are extremely important. Have all incoming mail date stamped. You should have a date stamp that clearly marks the time and date that envelope was opened. And most of you should, especially professionals, you should keep the envelope. And one good example of this, and this is a true story, an envelope came in with a $100,000 check. The letter was given to the employer and the envelope discarded, and in that envelope was the $100,000 check because the receptionist didn't look to see what the letter said. Just went into the trash. Employer discovered it within a day, and everybody went dumpster diving to pull out that envelope and the $100,000 check. Change of procedure to follow was that all incoming mail will be stapled to the envelope in which it came. And these things happen, and there's a lot of money that gets thrown away, or second checks have to be requested. Now, how do employers solve this? Number one, they fire all employees. They just fire them all. And then all the employees go out and file for unemployment, and they're all going to get unemployment because you have no reason, no way to prove that which one was stealing from you. And so it's a very bad idea and one that'll pretty much get you in hot water with unemployment. Let's go to the better ways to try to identify the theft. Now, at a time when this starts, when your theft starts, when inventory starts missing, cash is missing, food consumption goes up, identify when that actually started. If you can say it started in July and you hired only one employee in July, well, that's the first employee that you start looking at and examining computer records, phone records, and so on. But correlate to the time of newly hired employees to see if you've got a career embezzler that's starting to take your money rather than simply file all employees. Now, with any system for trying to prove embezzlement, especially if you're coming to unemployment to fight an unemployment case, you need to have some redundancy in your system. Redundant meaning you have to have two or more ways to prove. For example, you have a keypad where everybody keypads in and you can prove what time they keypad into work, and you have the video system on your parking lot showing what time their car pulled up and parked. There's a redundant system. If you have someone that is sweetheart checking, you'll have the cash register ticket, and you'll have a video showing who was in there and took the merchandise, and then a timestamp cash register ticket showing that the Snickers bar wasn't paid for. Redundancy in systems is what you should have in every employment that every employer should have when they're worried about embezzlement. In testing for honesty, I don't know if I recommend this, but I see it happening a lot. There's a number of large governmental agencies and even employers who test for honesty. One of the prize ways of doing it is telling employees lost gift cards must be immediately turned in. Lost money must be immediately reported. Especially like the casinos are very tough on this, and they got a camera on every square inch of their casino at any point in time. Most employers probably don't want to put a camera on every square inch of their business. It could be cost effective though if you start adding up the losses. But certain employers will drop a gift card occasionally, and then they will track that gift card to when it's used at one of the Mart stores and go into the Mart store and demand the video and look at the video to see which employee who was on duty that day the gift card was picked up used the gift card, and then they fire them for dishonesty. And there's a lot of ways you can test people for dishonesty. I know people that have cleaning services, and they will leave money lay, and to see if the cleaning service person will take the money or if they'll report it and turn it in. Whatever you do as an employee, if you find money, if you find something of any amount of value and you turn it in, you document that to the person and anybody else that you can think of, human resources. So if you find a $100 bill when you're at work, and you take a photocopy of it so you have the serial numbers, turn it into your supervisor, and then shoot an email to the supervisor saying, I found $100 bills at such and time and such a place, and gave it to you at such and such a point, because then and the supervisor steals it, you can't be blamed for it. Employees, documentation. You don't think about it as employees that you should have to do that, but do it. Returned merchandise. Now this is a big one for merchants, where employees will get together with people in the warehouse and they will take large ticket items from a warehouse, bring it in, return it for cash, and they will return it over and over and over again because the person in the warehouse has a deal set up with the person up front. And so they return the same item of merchandise and get the cash and end up with thousands of dollars in loss. And this happens a lot in mechanical companies, plumbing companies, heating and cooling, and these types of businesses. You'll see this type of large ticket item where the inventory isn't watched. Sweetheart checking. Sweetheart checking is very common, and any employer who's been here and knows what's going on understands what I'm saying. Sweetheart checking is when a friend or relative of the person running the cash register comes in and the cash register employee either doesn't charge them, doesn't scan the item, just puts it in the bag, or gives them a discount. Now employees, on Sweetheart checking, if your employer lets you give discounts to your family and a 10 or 15 or 20% discount, when that happens, make sure that you document the date and time it happens, and if you can, keep a receipt and shoot an email or some written document saying, I had my parents come in, you said I could have a 10% discount for them, I gave it for them, here's the copy of the receipt, so you know that I wasn't giving just anybody off the street that discount. Employees document it. Employers have a hard and fast rule in letting employees know if they're caught Sweetheart checking without authorization that they will be fired immediately on the first offense. Now, when it comes to an unemployment case, if you're trying to prove embezzlement and you have a videotape showing or proving the theft, you must offer that portion of the videotape into evidence, or you will have a tough time winning your case. Even if you are an eyewitness, for some reason, you just really need to have the best evidence, and that is your video. Make sure that you keep accurate records, documentation, photographs, key punch times, computer records, print those out and have them ready for your case. Employees, when you get accused of theft, you should try to do anything you can to have records showing what you did and why. Now, one of the things that employees get accused of is time theft. And employees, you can find ways to prove where you were and what you were doing, both login times on computers, use of a company's cell phone, use of different kinds of equipment that will date stamp. There's lots of ways to prove that you were there when you said you were and you weren't part of it. And by all means, employees, just because everybody else is doing it doesn't give you the right to do it. Play by the rules. Always document something that looks a little fishy. If everybody else is doing it, if everybody's drinking free pop and you aren't, and you don't want to really turn them in, but you can always write the employer, say, everybody seems to be drinking free pop out there. Can I drink free pop too, or do you want me to continue paying for it? And then the employer will go out there and get it straightened out, and hopefully they won't tell them that you were the one that asked the question. That's about all I have to say about embezzlement and unemployment. By all means, documentation is very important. If you're an employer going into an unemployment hearing and you want to prove your case, don't just come and tell them what the video looked like. Bring the video. Don't tell them about the key-in pads or the codes and the computer records. Bring copies. Bring copies of those receipts that you have. Bring copies of the credit card reports. Bring copies of the telephone records. Whatever proves your case, make sure you have copies there and to back up your story. Good luck.